It's been a rough week, and that's putting it mildly, for Venezuela's opposition, as hopes of removing President Nicolas Maduro appear to be fading, and opposition leaders have begun to flee. This week, the man that many consider to be the rightful president of Venezuela now, Edmundo Gonzalez, arrived in Spain after fleeing into exile as part of a negotiated deal with Maduro's government. Upon his arrival, Gonzalez stated, quote, "My departure from Caracas was surrounded by acts of pressure, coercion, and threats. I trust that we will soon continue our fight to achieve our freedom and the restoration of Venezuela's democracy." Meanwhile, Venezuelan security forces have encircled the Argentine embassy in Caracas, where 6 opposition leaders have sought asylum. So, is this the end of the illusion of democracy in Venezuela? Okay, wait, hold on. Not sure who is still clinging to that illusion after years of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, but, let's go with it. Let's cling to the illusion of democracy. But joining me now is Kejal Vyas, a South American correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, who's been covering Venezuela since 2010. Kejal, thank you very much for joining us here on the Situation Report. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's start at the very top here. 30,000-foot view on Venezuela. Is there any chance Maduro is going to lose his grip on power, or is he there now for this next term?
It's such a volatile situation. We're seeing it kind of change here on almost on a day-to-day basis. But at the moment, it's very hard to envision what will push Maduro out that hasn't already worked. At the moment, he seems very determined to entrench himself, stay in power at any cost. And as you very rightly laid out, the opposition played ball effectively. They decided to go to this election with really unfair conditions. And by the data that has been made public so far show that they trounced Maduro. However, Maduro has his own results and is insisting on them. He's not showing any evidence to back up his assertion that he won another 6-year term. But at the moment, we're kind of at an impasse. The opposition's main candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, is seeking political asylum in Spain. Today, he actually met with the Spanish Prime Minister, and at the very least, he's trying to show that he's going to continue rallying international support against Maduro. Now, Maduro's had international international condemnation for since 2019, effectively. I mean, he's been deemed an illegitimate leader by most of the most countries around the world, and so that didn't budge. That didn't help him budge him from power. And now it's hard to see what the next steps are here because he's adamant on staying in power, and also it doesn't seem that there's as much appetite for international pressure as there had been years ago. And under the Biden administration, we've seen a pretty concerted effort over the last 2 or 3 years to try to come back to the negotiation table with Maduro, offering some sanctions, all predicated on these promises. They were going to hold something resembling a fair vote. Now that clearly has not happened. In fact, we hear from many people that it's actually the worst case scenario, where you have just an absolutely brazen fraud, where numbers are just absolutely pulled out of thin air to declare a victory. And so, if that's your opposition, if that's what you're kind of negotiating up against, it's kind of hard to see how you're going to, find some kind of dialogue in good faith.
Yeah, have you seen in your work covering Venezuela and dealing with the people that you deal with, your sources, your contacts, are there any indications that there may be any daylight at all between the military and police and Maduro, or has he got them locked down pretty tight and they're going to support him no matter what?
At the moment, we've not seen any of those fractures. This is actually, I referred earlier to 2019, and back then, when the Trump administration leveled some of the strictest sanctions against Venezuela, they had also been, working very hard to get Venezuelan military officials to flip on Maduro. It did not work then. Had very limited success. They didn't get very many defectors, and this time around, it seems that Maduro has hardened, all of his inner circle, and so they're for the moment sticking by his side. We've seen numerous times over the last month, or the 6 weeks basically since the election. We've seen the military top brass to not just congratulate Maduro on the victory and recognizing his claim that he won, but also just putting themselves basically making themselves available to help him crush any kind of dissent or political protests on the streets. And so they've done that fairly effectively over the last 6 weeks, to the point where most folks are very scared to protest or even tweet about the government because they feel that security forces are going to be knocking on their door, and that's also what's pushed thousands of opposition activists, people who volunteered to serve as voting station witnesses on the day of the election. All these folks are now in hiding, fearing persecution, and many of them are starting to flee the country. And case in point, the opposition leader Edmundo Gonzalez. But we still have the other opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, still in the country, but also in hiding. So it's a very dire situation.
Yeah, it's hard to see, I guess, when you think about his support from the military. It's hard to see where the upside would be for them to split with Maduro, given that most of the senior military leadership have benefited greatly from their loyalty to him. So there's nothing but downside. If they step down from power, then they're squarely in the target sights as well as Maduro is. You raised an interesting point here with Maria Machado, in terms of she's in hiding, but she's in country, and yet the reason why Edmundo Gonzalez was the candidate, a bit of I don't know how you would call him, a reluctant candidate, was because she was declared ineligible. I mean, again, this is all, it's all relative, right? It's all efforts by Maduro to keep the opposition from gaining any traction. Any indications that she's in danger, or that, because of that, she may be looking to go into exile as well?
That she's in danger, I think, is indisputed. That we've had numerous regime officials come out to say that she deserves to be incarcerated for instigating what they consider violent protests, and she, for the moment, she said she has not indicated that she will want to leave the country. At the same time, she has gotten numerous offers from other Latin American countries who said would happily give her exile if she so wished. However, if she were to leave, I think that would be as much as many Venezuelan opposition supporters felt crestfallen after Edmundo Gonzalez left. As you mentioned, he's not a career politician. He's a guy who, fulfilling a civic duty and seeing the rest of the opposition leadership arbitrarily banned from running in this election, was put as a placeholder candidate and went with it. He's not really somebody who has any kind of aspirations, political aspirations, or much experience, leading a movement like this. Maria Corina, meantime, she won like 90-something% of the votes last year when the opposition held a primary to become their candidate. She has a pretty strong mandate, strong support, and that's who many of the opposition opposition supporters put their faith into. So if she were to leave the country, I think that would be a serious psychological blow to the struggle, which looks pretty grim as is. But that would be, I think some people would even call it a potential nail in the coffin.